Hey everyone, welcome back to In the Alley. My name is Cody. Glad you guys are back for another video. Tonight we are previewing the Quad City Steamwheelers. My favorite team, your favorite team, maybe after this video, but not really. This is my favorite team, and unless you live in the Quad Cities, it's probably your favorite. If you live in the Quad Cities, it's probably your favorite team too. But yeah, I'm very critical of this team at times when I probably shouldn't be, and I give other teams a pass when I probably shouldn't. So this team is going to be a huge wild card in the Eastern Conference for me. They've been consistent over the last few years. So let's go take a look at everything that encompasses the Quad City Steamwheelers and gather the information we can. Okay, so team info popping up. And this is my favorite team because my family lives up in the Quad Cities. My brother and sister were born in Davenport, and a lot of my family history resides in those four cities, mainly Bettendorf and Davenport. So, quick little side note there. I was born in Des Moines, but the rest of my family resides over in the Quad Cities. Anyway, the Quad City Steamwheelers, based in Moline, Illinois, they played a vibrant arena at the Mark. And I know that's like an old-timey thing from when that arena was just way back in the day before all like the name brand and sponsors and stuff like that came through. So it's always fun. It just sounds like a monster truck ad. But anyway, the capacity is 9,200. Their head coach, Go Big Red, as always, Corey Ross. So they have 0 championships to claim. They got close. But 0 championships to their name. They've been very consistent over the last 5 years. They didn't play one of them, so the numbers are a little skewed. So they are over 500 by 3 games. But when you take a look at the last 3 seasons, technically they've gotten worse. From 22 to 23, they got worse by half a game. And then by 23 to 24, they actually got worse by a full game. So if that trend goes, they're going to be 7-9 this year, but we'll see what happens. I'm picking them to the playoffs because they're my favorite team, so shove it. No, this team should be a very big wild card when it comes to the Eastern Conference. I know I said that just a second ago, but they have a bunch of fun players that have been signed or re-signed. We'll take a look at them in a minute. But yeah, we'll see how far this team can go because they've been bounced in the first round the last 2 years. So let's go take a look at that schedule, see what wins, losses we can kind of think about, how this schedule shapes up, and we will move on with the rest of the preview. All right, so as I am recording this on Saturday, March 8th or 9th, I don't have the day in front of me. The 8th, there it is, it's in front of me. Thanks, bottom of my Apple computer. Anyway, Saturday, March 8th, we are less than 2 weeks away from the start of the season. So less than 2 weeks away from Quad City and Green Bay kicking us off. Well, not kicking us off because that's Massachusetts and Jacksonville, but yeah, they're kicking us off too, that Friday night. So looking at the schedule here for Quad City, 4 games, bye, 4 games, bye, 5 games, bye, 3 games. And taking a look at the very beginning of the season, they have a home in Iowa before the first bye week. And the first 2 games against Massachusetts and Green Bay, it's always kind of a crapshoot in the first couple of weeks. Regardless of who your team is, it's hard to predict. It truly is until you figure out who those 25 players are. You start kind of seeing those betting lines and things along those lines. Could Quad City win against Green Bay? Possibly. Green Bay is on the road. We don't know what they're going to be made of, but they return a lot of their players. Massachusetts is not in flux, but they have talent missing that they had last season, and so you never know. Iowa could be on the come up. I'm not sure, but ultimately, if you can escape that first quadrant of games with 2 wins, you go 2-2, maybe even 3-1, and that's shaping up nicely. You look through the first half to the kind of second half here. Home against Jacksonville at Fishers. By that time, is Fishers clicking? Not sure. Green Bay and Tulsa. Again, Tulsa, the Frisco Oilers. Do they get it going? After that bye week, they go to Tulsa. Then they're at San Antonio. San Antonio is beefed up. Fishers, by that time, should have the ball rolling on their expansion team. At Jacksonville with, that kick return for a touchdown to end the game against Jacksonville in Jacksonville last season. brutal. It's on every highlight reel. Home against Massachusetts, bye week. Home against Green Bay, at Iowa, so they complete the trifecta with Green Bay and Iowa to end the season, and then home against Tulsa. So 3 of their final 4 games are at home, so that does bode well a little bit if they are fighting for those playoff spots. Hopefully home field advantage and the fans can turn out, but that's pretty much that's their schedule. A couple of Friday games, most are Saturday, most 6 or 7 p.m., and yeah, I mean, it shapes up very nicely for Quad City. Again, I can't remember the other team we talked about where their schedule was kind of broken down like this, but kind of the same way, 4, 4, 5, and 3. So break it up evenly into little quadrants. So with that being said, let's go take a look at the roster, our departures and re-signings, and our 3 big questions. All right, so roster popping up here. We have a lot to talk about. Because there's been quite a bit of roster turnover from Quad City last season to this season. Quite a few players are gone, but quite a few big signings. And we'll talk about number 1 here. Daquan Neal, signed over from Bay Area. They went ahead and got Josh Jones. Daquan Neal without a home to call, and Quad City came calling. My goodness, too many Q's and C's and Quas and stuff. Daquan Neal answered the call. There you go. To Quad City. I'm just messing around now. Anyway, Demery Croft is also signed. He has been around the Indoor Football League for quite a while. Tucson, Duke City, San Diego, a couple of others. If I know I'm probably missing 1 or 2 that he's been with, and yeah, so he's a huge veteran when it comes to the indoor game himself. So quite a bit of experience there at the quarterback position compared to last year. And that's not to talk ish on the other 2. They were valiant warriors when it came to last season with Erickson and Mike Irwin, but a lot of experience there. Running back Jared Ware comes over from the Tulsa Oilers. He is with Northern Arizona last season as well, I think for like a game or 2, until he went over to Tulsa. So I should have put Tulsa and Northern Arizona, but yeah. Gino Appleberry from Chattanooga comes over as a rookie on the running back position. We'll see how that goes, how they replace Edward Vander, things along those lines. The running game should hopefully be improved with a dual threat quarterback like Daquan Neal. Jared Ware should be able to get out in the open too when it comes to the running game. They have re-signed a trio of wide receivers from last year. Kevon Rudd is back for yet another year. Davenport's own Jordan Vesey is back, and Easton Bianchi is re-signed as well. I think Bianchi only played in 1 game, and Jordan Vesey didn't play in too many either. I think he played about half the season. Coming over from other teams, Devonair Conliffe, and it's confusing, I know, but I've looked this up. It is Conliffe. I think on his nameplate in Duke City, he was Concliffe, so it's Devonair Conliffe. Deion McShane comes over from Iowa. Trayvell Calvin comes over from Tulsa. And when you look at kind of those players, I know I harp on this in every preview, but not a lot of size. Conliffe 6'2", but he's a big boy. Kevon Rudd 6'3". But then we go take a look at these rookies. Davian Johnson 5'9". Okay, but Easton Bianchi's 5'6". And then Kayjon Baptiste, 6'3", and DeMarcus Gregory repping the MIAA from Central Missouri, 6'3" as well. So some size there. If they can crack through the experience, that is the wide receiver position. Over to the offensive line, Shiron Rogers, Joe Crowell, and Ivory Scott are re-signed from last season. Tyrone Chambers comes over from Iowa. And Tyrone Patterson is over from Jacksonville. Now, it doesn't say he played there last season, but he was signed to Jacksonville this year. They traded Karan Ashley over to the Sharks. Sharks gave back Tyrone Patterson. So, a little bit of some trades going on with Quad City and Jacksonville there, but very experienced offensive line. Hopefully that can carry the offense with the rest of the skill positions. Over to the defensive side, Keyshawn Moore is re-signed for another year. Very good signing and re-signing. They do lose Jalen Swan over to Fishers. Chimadunga is over from Tulsa. And then they have David Cagle, Kadir Shepard, and Jordan Lawrence rounding out the rookie class of that defensive line. And I'd have to look it up, but I believe Jordan Lawrence was one of the signings from their tryout. So hopefully he's given a good shot. I think Quad City and all the teams playing in week 1 are in their training camps and everything as we speak right now, from what I've seen on social media, Facebook stories, Twitter, whatever the case could be. So here's hoping these guys can put on a good look for the coaches and make that 25 roster. Bubba Arslanian is back for another year. Brian Lee over from the University of Maine. We'll see if they carry 2 linebackers or how they go about it, but Arslanian, very, very good season in the limited amount of time that he was with Quad City. Nice to see him re-signed. To the secondary, Trey Smith and Malik Duncan are re-signed. Malik Duncan, veteran presence on that defensive secondary side of the ball. Kudos to him, man. I know that they've talked about it on some broadcasts and maybe even some news reports, but kudos to him on his weight loss journey and everything that he's going through. It's probably a tough thing for him, but kudos to him and the strides that he's making when it comes to getting fit and doing what he has to do. Cameron Harrell comes over from the Sioux Falls Storm, and then another slew of rookies: Chris Chukwuneke, there we go, Devaya Bure, CJ Parrish, Latravius Kingsland, and Wendell Warren are all signed as rookies for this season. And I believe Wendell Warren is the second tryout player that got signed along with Jordan Lawrence. So again, hoping that these tryout guys get a fair shake. Could they make the roster? Time will tell. Kicker position, Kyle Kaplan, he is back for another year. Quad City has signed quite a bit of players from their 2024 roster. I keep thinking it's 2024. Their 2024 roster to this 2025 season. Non-active rosters include Sonny Lane, Sherrod Page, and Warren Newman. They're all on League IR. And then rookie Arian Harvey refuses to report. So again, I think he is signed, but he's just not showing up. So there is your roster. Very veteran-laden offensively. A little bit of some question marks in the secondary and on that defensive line. But overall, that's a really good roster for Quad City going into this season with a very tough Eastern Conference at hand. So let's go take a look at our key signings and re-signings, our key departures, and then we got 3 questions to wrap it all up. All right, so key signings, re-signings, and key departures. We're going to start off very easily. Daquan Neal, 129 completions. That is a typo. He did not throw for that many yards. My goodness. It's actually 1,519 yards, 30 touchdowns to 7 picks, 148 attempts, 744 rushing yards, and 23 rushing touchdowns. Very, very serviceable. Look for more of the same, especially a dual threat category. I know they had Mike Irwin run a little bit, Judd Erickson. He could take off when he absolutely needed to, but to have a true dual threat quarterback for Quad City, it brings back some EJ Hilliard vibes. That guy was very good too. So Daquan Neal, hoping for more of the same with him. I know I say this, I don't say this in a mean way, but he's up there in age when it comes to football and indoor football terms, but he's not Nate Davis or anything like that. So kudos to him for that. But we'll see if he's taken a step back. I hope he doesn't. I don't think he has. But if he can keep those rushing numbers, those passing numbers, and again, he was kind of spelled with Felix Harper a little bit in Bay Area. So if he has a full season under his belt, I know he played almost the full season last year. I think he only missed like 1 game. I don't know if Felix Harper started a game and he came in. I can't remember, but ultimately Daquan Neal was the main QB1 for Bay Area. So hoping for more of the same here for Quad City. Defensive lineman Keyshawn Moore, 41.5 total tackles, 17 for a loss, 5 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 blocked kicks. Good enough for second team All Indoor Football League on the defensive line and All Rookie Team. You need an anchor on that defensive line. You've lost in the last couple of years players like Christopher Oakley, Malik Owens. I just said Jalen Swan. I mean, you've lost some guys on the defensive line in the last couple of years to Vito Mwanga, and to have Keyshawn Moore resign for another year, you bring in Jim Adunga. You kind of need to beef up that defensive line a little bit. That's a big thing. So getting Keyshawn Moore back, hopefully he can be a wrecking ball on that defensive line. And then finally, kicker Kyle Kaplan, 74 of 78 on the extra points, 27 of 47 for 57. So over half of his kicks, field goal wise, he only made 2 deuces. So that's a little bit of a concern. So we'll see there. But again, like I said with Gabriel Rui, if you make over 40% of your kicks in this league, when, like I said, if you're doing, 50 plus yard field goals with narrow field goal posts, chances are you're just punting. Chances are, quote unquote punting. If you're making over 50% of your kicks, that's really good. And of course, he's had, a game winning kick, 1 or 2 throughout the year. So he is a little clutch when it comes to that. He barely misses any extra points. Very serviceable. He's good enough for second team all indoor football league when it comes to the kicker position. So solidifying the special teams there. If he can get the deuce numbers up, he can be very, very good for Quad City in the kicking game. Key departures. Running back Edward Vander, he is over to Jacksonville. 144 rushing attempts, 614 yards, 25 touchdowns, 57 receptions, 532 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 kick returns for 35 yards. He was Quad City's leading receiver and leading rusher last year, and that goes to show you that the offense kind of went through him. The offense went through him really, really badly, and that's not to say the wide receivers were bad. That's just to say that that's how good Edward Vander was. Simple as that. If he was rushing the ball, they would, clamp down. He would go out in the flat and catch a pass and break off a tackle or 2 and get some yards. So for that, losing him, you do bring in Jared Ware, and he's been very serviceable as a running back. But looking at the stats over here, only 279 rushing yards for Ware last season, and then 327 yards receiving for him last year. So if Ware can bump up those numbers, we'll see how the offense goes. I'm looking for them to probably run the ball a bit more with DeQuan Neal under center compared to Erickson or Irwin from last year. So we'll see how this offense goes. Maybe those receiving numbers are not as gaudy from a running back. Wide receiver kick returner Jared Harrington, 38 receptions, 440 yards, 8 touchdowns, 21 rushing attempts, 57 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 52 kick returns, 1,232 return yards, and 4 return touchdowns. He is first team all indoor football kick returner. That is a big loss. The wide receiver position, I think you can probably replace that. Again, not to say Harrington was a bad wide receiver. He wasn't. Those stats are very, very good. But trying to find someone in the kick return category, you've got to find someone speedy. You got to find someone very, very speedy. And I know that's just very vague, but elusive, speedy, able to, wait for the blocks to open up and the lanes to open up. Harrington did that. 4 touchdowns proves it. So we'll see how that goes. Looking over at the stats, the next closest guy is Cam Harrell, the defensive back from Sioux Falls. He only had 434 returning yards. Jared Harrington had 3 times the amount. So that's a big loss. We'll see if they can replace his shoes. I'm not sure where he went, but kudos to him on whatever his future endeavors are. Finally, defensive back Darian Jackson, 66 and a half total tackles, 5 for a loss, 2 picks, 5 pass breakups, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and he himself had 5 kick returns for 67 yards. It's going to be a little tough to replace him just in the tackling department. He had 5 for a loss. He did break up a couple of passes, but he was always around the ball. He was a ball hawk, 66 and a half total tackles. Right now, the leading returning tackler is Bubba Arslanian with 50. So 16 and a half more than whoever they have currently re-signed. And I know there's going to be some big shoes to fill. Malik Duncan does his own thing. He's a very good, press coverage, jam the guy at the line of scrimmage. Trey Smith is pretty good, but is Cam Harrell going to step into that role for what Darian Jackson did? Is there going to be someone else, one of the rookies, stepping into that category? I'm not sure. So trying to replicate that production, you might not replicate it fully, but if you can be 3/4 as good, that secondary should still be good. But Darian Jackson also a very good veteran presence, leadership, all of those qualities that you need. So that's what we have for our key signings and re-signings. key departures. Let's go ask some questions. We'll get out of here. All right. It is time for 3 big questions. And as always, we're just going to dive right in. Question 1, does a revamped roster put Quad City over the hump? That's kind of what I alluded to in the first half of this preview. The Eastern Conference has gotten a lot better by kind of addition by subtraction. Frisco and Sioux Falls are gone. They add Fishers. Fishers has signed quite a bit of talent, but Tulsa has taken most of Frisco's players, or quite a bit of Frisco's, and that talent is just kind of dispersed throughout the league from Fishers, or from Sioux Falls, Frisco, Duke City. Like, some of these players have been signed to other teams, and they're going to carry on their careers. So Fishers looks to be pretty good. Jacksonville's loading up. Iowa looks to get back in there. Green Bay. I mean, we're looking at the entire Eastern, Massachusetts, everything like that. And Quad City has kind of hovered around 500, 9-7, 9-6, 8-8. Is there a chance that they can get double-digit wins, or is this more of the same? Is this just kind of rearranging the deck chairs? Not saying that the bottom's going to fall out, but trying to think of another analogy. But yeah, is it just going to be more of the same? Are we going to have another 9-7 season? Are we going to have another 8-8 season, regardless of the talent that we get? Or are we actually going to be able to put some things together and go 10-6, 11-5, or even better? I'm not sure. That's the reason why we have these open-ended questions. So, can they get over the hump? Can they get past the first round of the playoffs? They haven't done that in 2 years. We'll see. Question number 2. What is the offense like with Daquan Neal? And I kind of alluded to this in the roster segment. I think this opens up the offense quite a bit. You bring back a lot of skill positions, a veteran offensive line that played last season together. I look for them to run the ball. I do. Not like I look for them to run first. I mean, your head coach is a former running back himself. So having a dual threat guy like Daquan Neal, if Jared Ware can get the running game going too, that can open up the passing game. You didn't really have, I mean, you had a running game last year for Quad City, but it just seemed like times the offense would sputter. It would seem times like the passing game, if they couldn't get that going, then you would rely on the running game and you would just become one-dimensional, and vice versa. If you got the passing game going, the running game was just non-existent. And you just went through quarterbacks, but between the two quarterbacks, you just didn't know who the clear-cut number 1 quarterback is. Now, you probably know who it's going to be. You hope for 16 games of health. You just go from there. So, I think it's going to be more of a run-centric offense. Lull you to sleep a little bit, control the clock, and then they'll throw it deep on you if they get the chance. Kind of like what Daquan Neal did in Bay Area. It's not going to be pretty, but if you get the W's, it doesn't have to be. Question 3, what's a full season of Bubba look like? Bubba Arslanian only played, 6 games? Let me look up really quick. Yeah, he only played 6 games, so not even half the season, and he is the returning tackler for Quad City. Add on top of that, he had 3.5 tackles for a loss, 3 pass breakups, 2 fumble recoveries, and 1 forced fumble. So having him re-signed is a big thing. That solidifies that linebacker position and also has a good spot in that defense shorn up. Main concern on defense for me would be that defensive line. I know you have Keyshawn Moore. Chimadunga was serviceable for Tulsa. You need another guy on that defensive line to step up. If one of those rookies can do it, kudos to them. But we'll see if anyone separates from the pack during training camp and whoever makes that 25-man roster. But back to Arslanian, very, very good 6 games for him when he signed late in that season last year. Got to see him put on a show against Green Bay last year in Quad City when I went to my only game last year, and that was a fun game too. They pulled out the victory. I hope that a full season of Bubba is very good for this defense. They had their lumps in the linebacker position. I'm just trying to remember the names that they had. They started off with a couple of guys, and I'm blanking on all of the names until Bubba came through, and that's all I remember. I'm sure I'll remember after the video because that's how stupid my brain is, but that's what we have. I'm looking forward to a full season from him. So that's what we have for our 3 big questions. Let's wrap everything up. We'll get on out of here. And that is it for the Quad City Steamwheeler preview for 2025. Again, I'm putting them in the playoffs for my own selfishness, but I do think that they will be, and I hate to say it because I have to be realistic. I'd love to say that they're the number 1 seed and undefeated, but I think they fight for that 4 seed. I do. I think it's a little bit more of the same until proven otherwise. I have to be realistic. I think Jacksonville is better. I think Green Bay is just a half step better. Massachusetts is a wild card. Tulsa looks to be good. I have Tulsa in the playoffs. I think it's going to be a 3-team race for that 4 seed. I think Fishers, Massachusetts, and Quad City for the 4th seed. Because I think Tulsa, Jacksonville, and Green Bay, not in that order, I think they have the other 3 playoff spots. So that's what I have right now. I think Quad City has an opportunity to make a playoff run, and they have a roster to do it. Massachusetts, again, we'll see what they do. But like I said, I know that might ruffle some feathers. And like I said, I'm very critical of this team because I want them to do well. I want them to win championships. I do have to be realistic, though. It's going to be tough, and every game is going to be kind of a white knuckler unless they start blowing teams out. So I'm hoping for some success here. Prove me wrong. Anyone in Quad City watching this, prove me wrong. But yeah, I'm hoping for some success for Quad City. I'm hoping for 10 wins. But for me, my range is anywhere from 7-9 to 9-7. I think they're just treading in that area until they kind of get over the hump. And I'd love to be proven wrong. So with that being said, I'm taking off here, guys. As always, love and appreciate every single one of you. As usual, like, comment, subscribe, share, whatever you guys want to do. I don't care. With that being said, I'm taking off here, guys. San Antonio, you are on deck, and we are just trudging through. We've only got a couple more of these to go, and we're done with the previews, and then we will have a week left until the season. So until then, less than 2 weeks until kickoff. The Indoor Football League is getting closer here, guys. But until then, I'm taking off here. See ya.